Hi guys, I'm Demented Jumper. Today we're reviewing the Nintendo 64, which was released back in 1996. Now, this is one of probably the most successful console of its time, mainly because it pushed the boundaries of what video games could do. Because that was I think one of the very first consoles to be released that had video games to be released in 3D, and I think it's like one of those unique consoles because it helped revolutionize the gaming industry as we knew it. So if we didn't have stuff like the Nintendo 64 um, or the PlayStation or whatever type of console or video game characters that weren't released, I don't think the video game industry would be the same as it would be today. And I think with the games that have been released for it, I think they've also helped push the Nintendo 64 to become one of the most well-known and recognized uh, gaming consoles out there. Because for the games you've got stuff like Mario Kart, uh, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time: Majora's Mask, Mario 64, and various other games that were released and were quite successful on the Nintendo 64. And I think it's I don't think it's one of those consoles that when in 20 years time, 30, it will still be recognized as a revolutionary console that helped pave the way for video games as a whole. And I think it's like back in the day when it's like released before, you know, uh, we had the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation 4, Xbox, those type of consoles that we have now. I think um, the PlayStation, no, no, the PlayStation, the the Nintendo, yeah, Nintendo 64, yeah, finally got there. The Nintendo 64 was able to have people play with each other and just whether it's at parties or at college or university or whatever, whether it's Mario Kart or stuff like that. And I think it's one of those interesting consoles that basically just is quite cool, and the design of it is quite simple. It's kind of like this bulky bit of plastic that you could put cartridge in and just uh, play the games. And yeah, it's kind of cool. It's cool, but it's kind of outdated when you look at the other consoles. I think the newer consoles look way better in comparison to the Nintendo 64, because we've got consoles that can connect to the internet, and we can literally download games uh, from from the console, and we can play it instantly and just do that sort of stuff. But with the Nintendo Switch in particular, no, in the Nintendo 64, um, you had to basically buy the games from a game store back when we could play game. We could go to game stores, um, and yeah, and I think with the Nintendo 64, it's like I think it's like it had its airtime. I think it's a really cool console, and I think a lot of the games that were released will forever uh, make the console as a relic and as a sort of uh, homage of what games could be and how games should be, because of the how much 3D has come. Because if you look at games like Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time, those sorts of games were kind of blocky and sort of uh, not well defined. But back then, it was really revolutionary. People had never seen anything like that until then. But I think with games nowadays that have good looking graphics and 3D that looks almost real life looking and stuff like that. I think the Nintendo 64 has some limitations from then, and yeah. And probably for one final thing about the Nintendo 64, I think it's one of those consoles that I quite enjoy, because it's one of those consoles that looks interesting enough, and it's basically just it's kind of there. It was basically there to pave the way and stuff like that. And if I had to say what my final verdict of the console. I think it's okay. Okay is that it's not as good as newer consoles are now, but I think for its time, I think it was revolutionary, and I think it's quite interesting of how it was marketed, and how many games there was on for it, and how it's probably one of Nintendo's most successful consoles to date. And so yeah, that's been my review for the Nintendo 64. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.